Hi everybody, it's Alisa Murray here. Hi my sweet lifers. Hope you guys are having a beautiful day. I am so excited about this new series that we're doing. We are working together, me and a bunch of different authors. Today I'm with Manan, and we have put together this gorgeous book. We have a mutual friend, Satavia, who has put it together. She's really the one that's put it together. Satavia's been my photography client and a friend of mine for 15 years. She's worked a lot in hospice. She's a nurse. Manan's a doctor. You all know how much I love doctors and nurses since Mama was a nurse, Daddy was a doctor. I hang out with a lot of doctors all the time anyway. Y'all know that as well. So this was a great project for me to be asked to contribute to. And this book is Journeys of Goodbye. And we're going to have a link down below on how you can get a hold of a copy of this. It's just come out like within the last month. Okay. And we've just started putting together all the different authors for an interview, chance to just visit, chance for you guys to get to know more about them and us. Y'all already know all about me, but a chance for you guys to see a little bit of behind the scenes on this book. And then we're doing a book signing in Missouri City. Right. I think it's November the 1st. Right. There'll be more information about that as well. I'll put that out on all the social channel stuff, and you'll see that in the newsletter. But thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
Exciting to be a part of this project.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting journey. Just being able to sort of go inwards and find the stories that need to be told. Yeah. It's been fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to start with his story in the book. We have a couple of things we were talking about before we got set up to do the episode today. One of the things that you wrote about, or the main story that you told, was about a couple that you met when you were actually on your first rotation.
That's right.
And what the way I think about things, and the way that you guys know I think about things in the universe, everything is planned, right? Everything happens for a reason, and I think that was a huge thing for you to experience on your first rotation.
Absolutely. I think that was the time frame on my life where, like, my wife and I had been together since high school, but that's when we were really considering, like, what the next steps for our lives were. We're still dating at the time. And then I come across this couple that are at the tail end of their journey. Mm-hmm. But they are sort of, exemplifying exactly the kind of life that I want to be able to live and the kind of person I want to be. And seeing, them being able to sort of do that was like, it's clear that this is the message that I needed to have, and sort of help shape pretty much who I am since then. So
yeah, it's really beautiful. You guys are going to really enjoy it. I actually cried through 2 different parts of it, which is saying a lot because y'all know how it takes a lot to make me cry. But I was really, really moved by it because it's very reminiscent to me of my grandparents. Right. Granny and Big Daddy were together for a long, long time. They were one of those couples that got to be married for over 65 years. And, whenever Big Daddy would talk about Granny and Granny would talk about Big Daddy, they were always just like one human being. Right. They really had become one. And when you have a family member, especially someone you're married to, that is the bond that you have, when that one or the other is going through the process of dying, it's hard, obviously, to watch and be a part of it, but the beautiful way that he cared for her and how he, really showed you, that it's just not a burden. Right. It's part of the life process. And I often, whenever we talk about death and dying, and I talk about death and dying a lot, I should. And I'm glad I do. You know what I mean? Because people come to me when they're pregnant, and they come to me with new babies, and it's just such a joyful time, and everybody is planning all these things, parties and nurseries and all these things. And then whenever we have grandparents come, I always encourage them to bring me the grandparents, great-grandparents. And there's all this, like, they didn't realize that they don't think about, and I'm like, guys, as much as we prepare for birth, we need to prepare for death. And I think that's one of the reasons why when Satavia asked me to be a part of this project, I was like, this is right along the lines of where my mindset is all the time, right? Many of you all know Mother was killed when I was little. She was hit by a train when I was 8. It was a 1 minute she's there, the next minute she's gone. Many of you know that Daddy dropped dead on his 64th birthday. 1 minute he was there, the next minute he was gone. a lot of people don't get that long, lingering opportunity to say goodbye. And I think that the long goodbyes are harder, but I think the long goodbyes are also a blessing.
Yeah.
I think that the beauty about not having a long goodbye is that if you have had one happen to you, you know that you don't know when the last time is that you see someone, which is why I always hug you, whether you're a hugger or you're not, because I need to know that I've done what I need to do in case I don't ever see you again. And so I live in that sort of weird, really weird, morbid type mindset, which I know a lot of the people in this book do as well, because y'all are in hospice. You're in care of the dying. Fortunately, I'm not in that role, but in a way I am, because when people bring me the grandparents, they'll wink at me, and that wink means please get a photo by themselves, so that whenever they aren't here anymore, I've got the best photo ever to have at the funeral.
Yeah.
So there's always sort of that sort of mindset in the background when they come, even though some of them don't know that's happening because they don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
But I think the more we talk about it, it's the more we talk about it, the more we really think about it, the more we're prepared for it. Yeah. And the funny part about it is it's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, the way I see it is, I'm sort of driven by my faith, and within my faith of Hinduism, there's the different stages of life, and each stage comes with a set of instructions, right? Like things that you need to do. When you're going through the stage which is called brahmacharya, which is basically the stage of education. It's from age 1 to 25. During that time frame, your entire focus is simply on getting as much knowledge as you can, sort of growing up, being a child, going through that process. Then you go through the stage of grihastha, which is the stage of household, being there for your family, doing it as much as you can for your community. There's a concept called seva, which basically, I'm sorry for using a lot of these
no, they need to know it. You're educating them. That's good.
So seva is basically selfless service, and it is a core tenet that drives every aspect of it. There's your own duty to the world, which is called dharma, and dharma drives every single thing that you're supposed to do. But along with that, there's another central tenet, which is seva, which is selfless service for your community, sort of doing things for the world. And then you sort of go through these tenets all throughout all stages, but during these stages your focus is specifically on what your current focus is. And right now, obviously I'm going through the stage of building a family, living that lifestyle, and my focus is on what my core dharma is, and what my selfless services can be for the community. And then after that, you go through the phase. Basically, it's traditionally was hermit. So you would actually leave the world and you would go into the forest and you try to discover yourself, and you'd become one with nature. You'd become one with your spirituality. You would get to understand your inner self better. That's when you sort of walk away from your day-to-day life and you actually move into this aspect of, now it's my time with God. And traditionally was actually, physically leaving your village and going into the forest. Nowadays, especially the way my grandfather and like other people in the family did it, is they took a step back from the day-to-days and the struggles, and they just simply started focusing on how they can educate themselves more on the scriptures and have those kind of conversations, meet with people that are in that mindset. And I was very fortunate sort of having, my grandparents that were going through that phase and were teachers pretty much their whole life. So very willing to teach on that aspect of it. And so that's probably where that connection with end of life kind of came from, is that this journey, this end of journey, what that truly means, and what his true struggles were, what he focused on in terms of developing his soul for that next part of the journey. Allowing himself to truly embody the kind of spirituality he wanted to take onto his next life, whether or not there would be a next life. In his case, his focus was to try to figure out a way to descend and actually, get out of the cycle of rebirth. And I'm pretty sure that he did that, given the fact that he spent his entire life in service. But yeah. So those concepts were always sort of driving me, and then I got this opportunity. At the time, I thought it was kind of frustrating because I had all these interests in other fields, and my very first rotation ended up in, it was supposed to be family care, but ended up in hospice care, and I was going to people's homes, and I was hoping that it was an easy rotation so I could study at home. I didn't really want to be doing all this, but I think what I ended up getting out of it, which completely, was, I wasn't aware that would happen, is I got sort of a framework of what my life should be based on just meeting incredible human beings towards the end of their lives. And in the instance that I've talked about in the book is specifically about the husband of the person that's passing away. It's not necessarily about the actual patient. The patient unfortunately was catatonic and could not, speak. But the husband, the way he was giving the care, the way it was clear in every single action that he did, that it was driven with purpose, it was driven with his sense of duty, and it was driven with his true love for his wife. Mm-hmm. And that is, yeah, as I said, for me, that is I needed to see that at the time. I needed to know that that's something that is clearly, people can do that. That selflessness is something that is something that humans truly have within themselves, and hopefully I've been able to sort of embody that as who I am.
Well, I'm sure you have. I mean, it's one of those things that it's always evolving, right? It's not something that's going to be like, boom, here it is. But when you look back, I mean, like Brian and I just celebrated our 35th wedding anniversary. 3 blinks ago, we had 1,000 people at the Baptist Church, Charlotte Symphony Orchestra. 3 blinks ago.
Right.
And here we are now, grandparents, and I'm scratching my head, and I'm going, what? How did that happen? You know what I mean? And somebody asked us about 3 or 4 years ago, well, not even 3 or 4 years ago, longer than that, because it was before COVID. We were there for an anniversary in Mexico, and there was scuba divers looking for something, I don't know, at the resort we were at, and somebody came over to us because we were taking pictures, and we'd been there the same week they were, and she was like, are y'all celebrating anything? I said, yeah, we're celebrating our anniversary, and I forgot which one it was, but anyway. And she's like, how can you stay married to the same person for so long? And I'm like, how could you not? I don't understand. And then she's like, well, how do you do it? And I said, well, I breathe in and he breathes out. And she started crying right there at the table. She's like, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard anybody say in my life about their spouse. I said, well, that's just the way it is. And so that's what moved me too whenever I read what you wrote, because that's the kind of situation that Brian and I will be. And I would never marry again. I mean, he would never marry again. And we have, over all these years, 27 years of being in the studio, seen so many people come see us that are divorced. Not many that have died, but are divorced. And seeing what that's done with those children, and just being a part of life, right, in the community and whatnot. And I think, thankfully, I don't know how we did it, or, because we worked together every day and we didn't drive each other crazy, and we didn't want to not be together every day. We wanted to be together every day in everything, in every way. But that's the kind of marriage that those people had when you walked into their lives at that moment that she was in those last few months. And I think you said she actually lived didn't she live a couple of years longer than she was even anticipated to by diagnosis?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think I believe she was in her 60s, and she had been diagnosed with dementia in her
at 55.
Yeah,
at 55.
So going through that, I mean, it's very aggressive when it happens that early. So usually it's extremely rare for someone to even live the 10 plus years that I had already passed by the time I'd seen her. And she still lived longer than that, and all of that. I mean, I would contribute that 100% to the husband.
Yeah, is Bob still alive?
What's that?
Is he still alive?
I don't know. This was a patient, so unfortunately, I didn't have any connection with them. I mean, I would love to look them up and see if
you should.
Just be a little bit awkward, I think, but
well, I don't know. I mean, that's me though. I'm always that kind of y'all already know. I'm that kind of a person. I'll be like, hey, I hadn't talked to you in 30 years. Let's go have a cup of coffee, catch up, see what's going on. Well, I think that it would be really moving for him to see this book and know how much his total humanity and understanding of love and death and dying has moved you in the way that you practice medicine and the way that you think about that, especially for your marriage.
That's true. I think like you make a very valid point. I think I should look him up and see if there's a way I can at least send him the book and sort of thank him for, just being himself. He didn't really do anything specifically for me, but it would
be the most wonderful thing that he's probably gotten in a long time, and a gift for his children. If he's not here anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, what a gift to hear from a doctor. Yeah. That was so moved that your entire practice and the way that you conduct your marriage is not based on, but has been impressed on you to really focus on what you saw in that first rotation.
It was same rotation. There was another patient. This lady was 102, 103 years old, and we went to see her at her apartment, and the doctor that I was sort of tagging along with, he had gone there like a week or two prior, and she wasn't at the apartment at the time, so this was a reschedule. So I went there with him, and he's like, "Where were you? We came down here, we couldn't find you." And she said that she had gone on a cruise, and she was on a cruise line celebrating one of her, I think it was like a grandkid's birthday or something like that. And she had just gotten back, and her only complaint at 102 was that she had a little bit of back pain, and the back pain was because she had been dancing too much with the cruise captain. And that was a beautiful sort of individual, truly living life to the fullest. Clearly at 102, dancing and living that life, it's incredible. So it's funny how there are instances like that truly stick with you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's interesting. Nana lived to be 102. Granny Big Daddy died earlier, which I talked about a little bit earlier. But Nana was just, she's a tough cookie. She's a tough cookie. Okay. And, I remember she broke her hip, and, Dad was chief of surgery, and she thought everybody did his bidding at the hospital. And so Nana is up there in the bed, and Dr. Abda comes over to check on her. They all come over to check on her, even though they're not even her doctor for whatever whatever she's in for. And she asked her if she cut her toenails. Would you please cut my toenails? And so the nurses talked about that for years, that whenever Miss Laura went in, Dr. Evans's mother was in the hospital, the Dr. Abda came over and was asked to cut her toenails. Nana didn't have a problem telling anybody anything she wanted to tell them. She said whatever she said, and people just said, yes, ma'am, and kept right on going. But she did. At the very end, she got a blockage in her bladder, and she had already had a colostomy bag and had it removed. She fell about a month before Brian and I got married and broke one hip looking at birds, and fell out the porch and was with a walker and slid it across the back of the church as they were doing the rehearsal, and said to my brother, "You better hold on to me, because I'm not walking down this church with this walker." She was like, my granddaughter's getting married, I'm walking like normal people, so she slid the walker, and everybody's like, "Oh gosh," because she's supposed to be using a walker. She was just a daredevil firecracker, but she would not die. She went in, and they had tried to remove the blockage, and I had just talked to her before she went in, and we had scheduled for her to be here in Houston. Everybody was going to fly. I was flying everybody in for Thanksgiving, and because that's me, I'm the matriarch, and everybody knows that, so I'm responsible for all of the things. And so I had it all planned, and we were going to do Thanksgiving here, and she had this blockage removed, and they took her off of her coagulant for the surgery, and she had a stroke and was flailing, I guess that's the best word for it, and was not going to come out of it, right? And so my sister was the one who had her with her, and she called and she goes, "Nana's dying. We're not going to be in Houston for Thanksgiving. She's flailing. They're trying to keep her as comfortable as they can. We don't really know what we're going to do." And I said, "Well, do you want me home?" Because I already talked to Nana, and she refused to come live with me here, because she said, "I know what you're going to do. if I come live with you and Brian, you're going to cremate me, and you're not going to take me to Virginia, and you're not going to bury me beside your grandfather. You're going to put me in a box with your cats and your shelves. And I said, yes, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Then I can just have you right here with me. And I can clear all the way to the other side in Virginia somewhere. But anyway, so she wouldn't come live with me. So anyway, I go to the hospital where Daddy was chief, had been chief. Daddy was already dead. Anyway, I get there. Well, I don't get there. I call Elizabeth. Elizabeth calls me and I said, hey, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to come help you with Nana? Or do you want me to come help you after she's gone? Because, there's going to be some things that need to be, we'd already done all the arrangements and stuff, which makes it so nice. This is another thing that I hope people will begin to see in this book. Like, make the will, pick out the casket, write the sermon, do the things so that the children don't have to do that. Write a list of all the jewelry that you want people to get. Make all the arrangements done in advance so that there's nobody having to worry about it. Because some people are going to freak out and cry and cry and cry and freak out and cry. Others are going to understand from the very beginning that when they get to a certain age, we're all going to go. Right. So they're going to respond completely differently. But things that are well planned work much better. Yeah. So Nana had already done all that. Obviously 102, clearly she had already done all that. So I was like, what do you want me to do? And Elizabeth's like, I just wait till she dies and come help me. And I said, that's fine. So 2 or 3 days go by with Nana like this. And Elizabeth calls me every day, like 2 or 3 times a day. And she's like, Alisa, you need to cancel all your photo shoots because she ain't going nowhere when you get here. She knows you're not here, and she's not going to go until you're here. Sure enough, let me tell you what I got. I got off the plane. I went in there, clipped her nails, cut her hair. I love people's hair. I love to have hair. I have my mother's hair. I have my daddy's hair. I have Brian's mother and father's hair. I just go around with this cat, William, that just passed away. Which I don't think you guys know about that. William passed away. You know about it if you get the newsletter, but you don't know about it if you're on the channel. Because I haven't addressed it yet because I couldn't talk about it. But now I can. It's been a few months and now I'm okay. But I clipped his whiskers. So I'm big on hair. Weirdo. I know. Maybe. Maybe not. Depends on the culture. But anyway, got in there, did all the things. Put the flowers in there. Called the people that did our wedding and Mom's funeral and Daddy's funeral. I said, I want all the most beautiful arrangement of lavender and white flowers. Those are Nana's favorite colors. Maybe a huge flower. She's not even going to know. Sarah said, doesn't matter. She's dying. We're having a party. We're having a party. All the nurses that knew Daddy were there. And then I sprayed the perfume that I gave her for Christmas every single year under the tree. And as soon as she smelled that perfume, she stopped flailing and she looked straight at me. And within like 12 hours, she passed. And I was like, yes. Because, it was like she knew. And then they called. Like, I went back to Mom and Daddy's house, Brian's Mom and Daddy's house, spent the night, like 3 or 4 in the morning, they called, the hospital called, and said, Nana's gone. I got there, and, all my experiences of death have been Daddy dropping dead with me in Texas, shooting babies and having to catch a flight to go bury a daddy, or, being an 8-year-old and running down the driveway in ballet clothes and Mama not coming back up the driveway, and caskets and dead people and scary stuff when you're a kiddo, right? But I'm at the hospital now with Nana, and she's just passed, and they've got her on the bed, and she's white as snow, and her hair is white as snow, and she's cold as ice. And I remember seeing Daddy kiss Mom, and I thought, oh my God, Mom's dead. Right? Because you're 8, you're little, it's scary, you're scared. Yeah. But I leaned in and kissed Nana, and I thought, this is the most beautiful transition I have ever been able to experience. Thank you. She was so mad when Daddy died before her, because he was her only son, and she was so proud that he was a doctor, and he wasn't there when she died. She watched her husband die, her son die, my mama died. She was pretty pissed off by the end of the whole situation that she'd lived to be 102. But she gave me this gift in seeing that death, that I will never see death. I'll never see death the same. Like, she was my, aha. Because, not that I was scared to die. I mean, we're all a little scared to die, because it's not nice to think about what's going to happen. Well, for me, and for you, we have our faith. But there are a lot of people that don't have a faith. And when you don't have a faith, I don't even know how you even manage that, because I don't know how I would manage it.
No, I mean, I'm always surprised at those answers. When people haven't sort of had those thoughts, Satya was one of the co-authors in the book. Her and I sort of get into a lot of these kind of deep discussions, because she she tends to think about it quite a bit. I mean, having worked in the hospice side, it's yeah, I think like you have to put some thought to it. I think like you have to have a way of sort of processing this for yourself, where it doesn't end up becoming a surprise every time it happens, because it is inevitable. That is just part of what our journey is. There will be death. There will be death in family. There will be death. Obviously we will pass as well. One of the things that like we do as a family is we've created this annual tradition where we talk about what it is that we want as our end of life. Like advanced directive is what essentially it is, but what it is that we would, given if we're in that situation, we need to know as a family what that other individual wants. And I've been in situations, where patients have passed, clearly having told certain people in the family what they wanted as part of their end of life, and not getting it because they hadn't sort of put it into paper or taken care of it. So if there's a message that your viewers would get out of this, please have that conversation with your family members. It is not something to shy away from in any way. This is something that is truly important. And obviously creating your will, knowing what all those things are also important, but also whether or not you want to get CPR, like actually educating yourself on some of those processes, understanding there's a statistic that almost, I think, like over 80% of doctors would not choose some of the end of life care that we clearly would perform on patients for themselves. And it's important to educate yourself on whether or not that is part of what you want as your journey. It seems like if you are younger and you pass away, like obviously you want to be resuscitated, all these different things, but it's important to know what that process is like, what actually happens, what that can cause in terms of your end of life care, all these different things. So having that information, getting yourself educated on that, having making it an event, making it it doesn't have to be necessarily morbid. It's more so understanding that this is your village, this is your community, this is your family. While I have the conversation on a annual basis with my wife, I was not doing that with my parents, because that was way harder to talk about that with someone who's much older than me. But I decided that like last year to actually make that a clear, important step in terms of doing that with my in-laws, doing that with my parents as well, because I went through this situation. I had a nurse that I worked with for almost 2 years. She had been a hospice nurse prior, and brilliant lady, understood end of life. She had been through multiple patients that had to go through that, and knew exactly what she wanted for herself. But she had never had that she had that conversation with me multiple times, but she had never had that conversation with her family, and her family was not ready to let her go. And she suffered for 2 weeks straight in the hospital. You can see that she is in pain. She's ready to let go. She did not want the kind of care, the interventions that were happening.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful to hear that your Nana was able to sort of have that opportunity for herself.
Oh yeah, I literally went in and said, and all the doctors that were in Daddy's practice were there too. They were all still alive, and I went in there and I was like, it's time to go.
Okay.
She's done. And 12 hours later, she was there with Daddy and Mama and everybody and Granddaddy and the whole 9 yards.
Right.
And I think that it's easier when they're older.
Right.
I think it's harder when they're young.
Yep.
Parents want to hold on to children. Parents, it's hard to understand why you're losing a child. It's hard to understand, if Mother had made it out of that wreck, there's no question that my grandparents would have fought my daddy, even if he gotten to the point where he would have said, okay, let's intervene. There's no way, because Mother wanted to be cremated, and Big Daddy and Granny insisted that she be buried. They thought we needed to see her in the casket. They thought we needed to have closure in that way. They even thought it was fun to pick us up and shove us into the casket so we could see the feet. That was not fun. That's haunted me for my entire childhood, which is why I will be cremated. You can put my wig on top of my cute little box and say some prayers. I'm not interested in all of the other stuff, right? I just don't. But the conversation we had when we did our will, We sat down with the children, and Victorianne, of course, starts bawling just at the thought.
Right.
And James Edward very stoically comes in and goes, yes, I will pull the plug if necessary. And we're like, this is the child that needs to be in charge of what happens if we are in a wreck between here and Florida. If I have a heart attack and don't die from it, or something happens and we need hospice. You know, we are not interested, and I don't think very many people are, the older you get, interested in having all these altruistic measures that are going to keep you alive just so you're sort of a blob on the couch somewhere for somebody to look at. And they're not even living.
Right.
So there's a lot of misunderstanding surrounding end of death assistance.
Right.
There's a lot of people that think you're just going to walk in and throw a needle in their arm and give them some medicine and kill them.
Right.
They don't understand that that's not what that's about.
Right.
And that's another big, huge thing that's important that's coming from this book.
Yeah.
Because, of course, I don't come from that perspective, right? You do. Satavia does. And many of the people that are in our book together are in that field where they are daily doing the care of helping day by day family not only still in the living, but dealing with the going.
Yeah.
You know. So I think that it's an important project that you and I participated in.
Absolutely.
I don't know that any of us may or may not expand and go in different directions and make other books on the same subject. You guys in that field certainly could tell stories after stories after stories.
I feel like
That's your
there's so
daily
many
life.
stories.
Yeah, it's your daily life and your calling. So, but anyway, well, I want to thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And I hope that you guys have enjoyed this conversation. As always, if you did, please do me a favor, like and share. Don't forget to ring that bell, and we'll see you next time on Living the Sweet Life. Take care.